Created live on Fireside.
Welcome back to YNS Live with NFL Thread. This is the podcast at the Super Bowl, and I have an awesome, I cannot wait because she has been in the fireside rooms every time we have someone. This is Tammy. How are you, Tammy?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. So Tammy is doing, we just sat down for like a couple minutes as we were getting back, and all of the stuff that Tammy does and is one of the board members for Off the Field. So I would first love to hear a little bit about the fashion show that's happening tomorrow and all the work that goes into that, because no one knows about the work that you ladies do.
Yes. So the fashion show is our 21st fashion show, 21st year for Off the Field NFL Players' Wives Association. And we're very excited. It's something that happens annually the Friday before Super Bowl. And it's an amazing event. But you're right, a lot of work goes into it. It always comes off flawlessly, but there's so much from seating to taking care of the sponsors and the VIPs to the gift bags, and it's a lot. Models, getting them organized. It's fun, but it's hectic.
It's hectic, but the thing is, so you guys, what I love about this, and this is one of the reasons why when I started this podcast and Cynthia Zordich was my guest, which was really, really fun, as Cynthia was telling me, all of a sudden my brain started going and thinking about what you guys do behind the scenes and that the average person does not know.
Yeah.
So this is, as Tammy said, this is the 21st year, and every Super Bowl, you guys pick a local charity. Am I correct?
Yes.
And then the proceeds go to that. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we pick a local charity. Our focus is on families and women. And so we like to pick a charity that coincides with what our focus is. So this year it's Holly Robinson Pete's charity, which does both family and it's Holly. So it's a woman. She's one of our sisters. She's one of our Off the Field Players' Wives members.
Yes.
And so that's really cool to be able to, celebrate one of our own. But every year we look at organizations that we feel are doing something that aligns with our vision for what we want to be.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so now, Tammy, I would love for you to dive in. And what else do you do other than off the field? Who are you?
So I wear a lot of different hats. I'm actually an ordained minister. I have my doctorate in ministry, and I work with a church in Houston, but I'm also the founder of an infertility ministry called the Waiting Room Infertility Ministry. I'm also the founder of the women's group, Capes Off, that focuses on supporting Black women in ministry because we're not always supported. It's kind of like corporate America. There's glass ceiling, we call it.
Right.
There's a different type of glass ceiling, basically. So anyway, I do those things, but I also work in the financial industry. I work for a firm called Bridgeway Capital Management. I'm a director of institutional relations. And Bridgeway is unique in that we are an investment management firm for profit, but we give 50% of our earnings to charity.
Oh, I love that.
So, yeah.
So you guys you can feel your heart. Tammy, you have an amazing heart. And the fact that you guys, twice a year, because you're also at the draft. You usually go to the draft too.
I don't go to the draft as much, but a lot of my sisters do.
You do, right.
Yeah.
But the fact, once a year, you guys know that you're coming together.
Yes.
I know all the work that you guys put into the fashion show, but also, as you said, you're juggling all these different hats. You have families, you're helping families, you're, out there making a difference in the community. And that's one of the things why when we started, this podcast, YNS Live with NFL Thread, because Thread is all about the connection, right? When Cynthia started Thread, it's all about the connection. And then the playbook is about telling the stories. And now that we have the podcast, it's about giving a voice to those stories because everyone has a story and we all can listen and we can all learn from each other. It doesn't matter if you're the president to a bartender. It doesn't matter. Everyone has a story and we all really can learn from each other. And I think that's some of the things that kind of is right now missing in the world. We're not, and not everyone knows how to tell their story.
Right. Well, I'll tell you how I really got fully connected with off the field was at a conference. We do those typically every 2 years. And that's where Cindy and I really got to know each other.
I
She was
love
just
that.
reminding me today. And so it was a chance for all these women that have this shared experience of, having been married to a professional football player. That it's a unique experience. And we all have a lot of similar stories, but you're right, everybody has a different story. But it was a common connection that we all had that we built on. And I think that's what keeps us all connected, because we understand from the outside looking in, people think, your life glamorous and you've got, but it's so much more than that. There's a lot more that goes into being the spouse of a football player. But there's also a lot more that goes into being who we are. We're much more than that, all of us. So.
Yes, and I love that you just touched on that, because that is the one thing why I wanted to start this, because everyone has their preconceived, mentality of what it is. And as a mom and as a woman, when I was talking to Cynthia, and all of a sudden she was saying all the different teams Michael was in, and I said, we had just moved, and I said, oh my gosh, you had to pick up every time, and then my brain went, you have to find the dentist, you have to, say bye to friends, you have to find, you have to find the doctors, you got to make sure if they're into sports that they have the teams there. There's so much, and so you are women just like we are, your mothers just like we are, and just because your husbands have this status doesn't make you any different. It makes you the same, because we all wake up and put our pants on the same way.
Right. And then there's the adjustment to, once their careers are over.
Right.
That's very different than most people when their spouse retires from their job. It's a very different experience. So there's a lot. But yeah, at the end of the day, you're still supporting someone through a transition, which is common to everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about. Like, the player could have been playing flag football when they were 5 years old, and then all of a sudden they get injured, or they, their time is up. And it doesn't matter how stable or how, that does something to you. And then as the spouse, you're there picking them up. And I really, it made like my stomach drop when I was thinking about it, because you're wearing multiple hats.
A good way I heard it explained was, imagine if there was something you did your whole life, and one day you woke up and somebody said, that thing you love to do, you can't do that anymore.
Right.
And so I'm a book nerd, so I was like, what if somebody told me I could never read a book?
Right.
Like, what? And I mean, it's different, but it's still the same kind of thought, that there's something that you love to do and then you don't have control over being able to do it anymore.
Right, and that's right, and that's crazy.